Welcome back everyone to Beyond the Boundary Road. I'm Kitty Cara and joining me is our cultural facilitator Danny Doyle. Hi Danny.
Hey.
As we venture along the ancient tracks of Brisbane, the next point we'll be stopping at is Camp Hill. So Danny, what can you tell us about Camp Hill?
Camp Hill is exactly that. It's a camping place. People would camp at Camp Hill on their way, and it was actually down the bottom of the ridge between Camp Hill and Whites Hill.
Okay, yeah.
And on their way to Cleveland. But that area is close by the track that would lead you towards Mount Gravatt as well.
Okay.
And families would gather there and have a break and a rest and whatnot.
So when you speak, it's really different from the way most people would speak about Brisbane, because you really speak about the landscape and the natural features. It's something that you know well. Have you walked these paths and
yes.
spend a lot of time in those areas?
Yeah, I've pulled up a few times. I don't suppose we'll call it walkabout these days, so we call it drive about.
Okay.
And I'll travel through these pathways.
And when you do that walking, does it have a spiritual element to it? Is it, or the drive about, like when you're exploring country,
yeah.
We hear as white fellas about the connection to country. Does that feel special to you when you're on country and exploring it?
I get the early mornings.
Yeah.
And I get the late evenings. And there are little bushlands still within Brisbane.
Yes.
That I can go to and just, I think you would say, admire the trees and the land, and just walk and feel their energy.
Yep.
Like that. And then the first thing in the morning, you got the birds and everything. I know you got the trucks and the cars and all that coming past. So, but once you get a little bit into the little forest, there's a place called Seven Hills.
Yes.
Nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get a little bit into there, and you wouldn't even know that you're in the middle of a town.
In the middle of a big city or something.
Or a big city. You're just out there in the bush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I've heard it described as like having a relationship with a person, having a relationship with the land. So,
well, we see the trees and the plants as our relatives.
Okay.
Yep. So when we want to go and take and anything from there for a resource or for food even, for that matter, we basically are seeking permission. Instead of making life hard for ourselves, we ask for that permission and they'll give it to us. They'll give us only what we need or whatever they can give us. And then life gets hard for us if we want to go and take more than what we need.
Okay.
Yep. So it's like you'll find it very hard to pull a reed out of the ground.
Yeah.
Or out of the earth or the water even. You ask for permission of this plant.
Yeah.
It'll just come out very easily. And then you'll end up with another one, and then all of a sudden it'll get stuck.
Yep.
And you'll start tugging on it.
Yes.
And it's definitely telling you can't have that one. The plant wants it.
Yeah.
So you have to leave it. Otherwise you find yourself pulling so hard you end up cutting your fingers.
Yeah.
Working yourself out too much. You could do your back out. Full of muscle, anything.
So it's about you're talking about something that's listening. It's about listening to the plants or the animals, or
Absolutely.
and
yes.
actually negotiating, I guess, with them to some degree. Is that right? Negotiating wouldn't be the word that you would use. It's such a white fella word, isn't it?
Yeah, negotiating is not our word at all.
No, it wouldn't be. What would be? What would you?
Seeking permission.
Seeking permission.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the same as you'll find as we travel from one area to another, and we're entering other people's country, basically.
Yeah.
So we're seeking permission and to come onto your country.
Okay. So you're talking about the pathways then and tracks that you've been talking about. They're negotiated ways through.
Absolutely.
Other people's country, or is every are there rules around how people travel?
There are rules that you don't go to certain areas within those pathways.
Ah, so you have to stay on the path.
So you're on the pathway and you stay to the camp. You go to the campsites.
Okay, like Camp Hill.
Like Camp Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go to the waterholes.
Yeah.
Places like this. But there are ceremonial places that you need to be taken to.
Ah.
And only will the people that stay in this area are the ones that can take you there.
Okay, so they can take you there if you need to go, but you wouldn't ordinarily.
No.
You're just travelling through or visiting people.
Normally you'd be visiting.
Yep.
And you would stay, camp, hunt, fish,
Yep.
and gather.
One of the conversations I once had with an elder was talking about the relationship with food and about how food is something that is given and provided for, but it's not something that you obsess about. It's not something that you're seeking and looking for. It's just something that comes.
That's right.
Is that right? The way I've described it, or?
What they're saying is that when you have for food and we're travelling, we're taking just what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and the flowers even they'll tell you how to use them and the leaves as well. You'll get time. You spend time with these things and you know how to use them for your benefit, and not to destroy this plant.
Yeah.
So there are some palms that you get when they're young, and you eat the heart of that palm, and you've destroyed it. Other than that, you wouldn't do that unless, of course, they were plentiful.
Okay.
If there wasn't enough around, don't touch them. Show some respect.
Yeah. Thanks, Danny. That's all we've got time for today. We'll pick up next time because that's really interesting. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Next week, we will move on to Carindale area. So thanks for watching us here on 31 Digital. And don't forget to keep exploring the country that you live on. Thank you.